Did you ever wish you could have infinite lives like in a video game? Tom Cruise gets dosed with an alien blood and gets to live over and over again in the highly underrated Edge of Tomorrow. Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. We're bringing a movie episode out, Eric. We're dragging a film out.
It's about time.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of music in the last couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, it feels like we record a lot more music episodes that we have in the can. And then we kind of do the movie ones when we need to. So we have to kind of get some more movie ones in the can.
Yeah.
Speaking of the can, one of our guests, Oscar the Grouch. Oh no, that's Nick Leshi.
Oh man,
Oscar the Grouch. Whoa,
man.
whoa.
Usually he cosplays, and I didn't know what he was dressed as today.
I know. Well, you couldn't find my mech suit, so you know.
He's dressed as the guy that just got back from vacation and gratefully joined us. Thank you, Nick, for joining us.
He is representing.
There you go.
He's got the shirt on, of course, and that cures all ills. That is like, that's like the golden ticket to Wonka's factory.
But he's waiting for the pants. He's waiting for the pants.
There's that line, right?
I'm deciding where to put the 33 and where to put the 24.
I gotta be free, man. I gotta be free.
Yeah, metric system.
I just got to figure that out, and then we'll have the design out on the pants.
Before and after, isn't that before and after in metric?
We'll leave it for the listeners to decide. And before I get to Roland, Nick is the creator of the City of Kick blog, so we'll drop a link in the show notes so you can go check him out.
Thank you.
The gentleman with the gutter mind.
Yes.
Mr. Roland Uruci, host of the Ready Speaker podcast, which is on YouTube. He's recently got a flurry of episodes out and about. So go check those out. Plus, he's got a great back catalog of it's short form content. He gets right to the point. He kind of gives you some really cogent information about it. Not the meandering stuff that we do, the kind of chasing butterflies style of our show, but Roland gets right to the point, and he gives you really great stuff about new releases. So welcome aboard, Roland.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Of course, Eric is here, and this movie Eric has never seen before, so we're going to be getting a fresh take on this.
Everybody's laughing. Everybody's waiting for me to pounce.
I kind of promoted it to Eric. I'm like, Eric, you're going to love this film. And I kind of really played it up. So we'll see. The movie we're talking about is Edge of Tomorrow. And if it doesn't sound familiar as a Tom Cruise film, it's kind of an interesting story about it. Let's do the stats, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit about this kind of mystery film from Tom Cruise. It was released in June of 2014, directed by Doug Liman. Written by Christopher McQuarrie, Jez and John Henry Butterworth. Jez Butterworth and John Henry Butterworth. No relation to the Syrup Empire.
They wrote the latest indie film.
Oh, there you go. See?
Yeah.
And of course, Christopher McQuarrie is a great screenwriter. Mm-hmm. He's no joke. And it was based on a short novel called All You Need Is Kill. $178 million budget. That's a lot of money. And it made $370.5 million box office. Now, that might sound like a lot, and it is, but only about 170 of that came from the United States sales. So that's kind of the reason, if you've never heard about it and why we're talking about this, it made most of its money overseas, this film. So 370 million is no slouch, but largely forgotten about in the United States. Would you agree, Nick, that this kind of...
It was one of Tom Cruise's rare, I don't want to call it a flop, because like you said, it recouped and everything, but not something that people will readily remember as one of his big movies. And it got good reviews when it came out. Mm-hmm. And then when it hit, afterwards on DVD or whatever it was, they used a tagline, live, die, repeat. And a lot of people were maybe blaming that the title was too generic. People didn't know because they were trying to keep all the spoilers. So they weren't really. So people didn't know what it was. It just looked like one of those. There were other similar type. There was one with Will Smith that was kind of that same time. After Earth or something like that.
Yeah.
So the trailers kind of looked very similar. So it didn't really play up. I didn't see it at the movie theater. I saw it afterwards when I heard people were like buzzing about it and talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. Same thing. Yeah, you're right. It actually got to the point with the marketing where they only had Live, Die, Repeat on the posters. They didn't even have the title of the film because they weren't, that Edge of Tomorrow actually sounds like a soap opera.
It does. It does.
You know, like after Guiding Light, Edge of Tomorrow, So yeah, I can understand how the title or the marketing would, like I said, it was no slouch of a film, just stateside, Roland.
Yeah,
Didn't find its feet until much later. Now it's a well-regarded cult film, and who would have thought, besides legend, that Tom Cruise would be in a cult film,
I watch it like once a year. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't see it in the theater. I probably watch it once a year with my sons, and we get a kick out. It's like one of those movies you can watch in the background. It sort of aligns with Tom Cruise and his style. As I was rewatching this and thinking about it, he's pretty much the same character he is in Mission Impossible and all the action things that he sort of does and jumps into, and he's gone into the foray of sci-fi with this one. So, but he's the same guy.
A little less so. He's a bit of a coward.
Yeah, that's the difference. That's what I was saying. In this one, he's not the guy who has all the answers. He sort of has to discover them. And I think we can get to it later, but I think that's the pivot point for me with this film, why I like it.
Yeah, and directed by Doug Liman, who I first came to know as the director of Swingers.
Really?
He directed Swingers, and then he kind of transitioned into becoming an action director. He did The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Jumper.
Right.
So he became well versed in the action genre.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, from like the low budget indie Swingers to that. Brad Pitt was
a movie called Go, which I loved.
Around the time of Swingers, right after Swingers.
Yeah.
That was a great film. Yeah.
And Brad Pitt was approached for this first, and he said no. So then they went to Cruise. And he said yes, and they kind of, we're kind of okay. Now that we've got the big name star attached, we'll start building the film around it. And even though this was based on a novel, they did not have an ending. They did not have a satisfactory ending. So they actually started, and the studio was worried about it. They're like, Doug Liman's like, we're going to start shooting. We're going to start shooting, and then we'll kind of figure it out. And we're finding out that this happens a lot. That films are being written, right, Eric? That they're being written as they're being filmed a lot nowadays. Even back to Casablanca. They're kind of like, when we get there, we'll worry about it, or the actors will help write something, right?
Yeah. How do you go without a script? How do you know on the day what to shoot? The feel of the thing? I don't know. It's crazy,
especially with a budget like that. Yeah.
I think that's
with a lot of money. Though.
Yep. They got to lock in the money, otherwise they're never going to get it.
Yeah.
So that's probably the thinking. They're like, hey, if we don't get, I already bought the house in Spain. I need the friggin' paycheck. So they're like, let's get this on its feet. Worst case, they shelve it, but we still get paid.
That's a good point.
Well, and Doug Liman had the studio worried because on the first day of shooting, he shot the first day. The second day, he said, we're reshooting the first day over again. So the studio was like, okay, like day one already. Set pieces that were supposed to take a week took 3 months. And a very interesting thing about this film is it pretty much takes place on the same day. So weather was a concern too, because they had to keep matching that opening scene of when, wake up, maggot. And so they had it, like, they couldn't film under blue skies because it wasn't blue skies. So there was, a whole bunch of logistical things with a movie that kind of, it's easy. It's more than a sci-fi Groundhog Day. It's easy to say, oh, this is kind of like Groundhog Day, but it's not really. I want to get to Eric because he had never seen it, and I really played it up to him.
Yes, you did.
And he's like, hey, I like Emily Blunt a lot, so I'm kind of in on it.
And I think she should have been the role should have been reversed. First off, I'm going to say that I think she should have been the lead. I think she stole the show. Tom Cruise was Tom Cruise. I didn't see you were saying that this is a different Tom Cruise.
It was for me.
I don't agree at all. I think it's the same run of the mill Tom Cruise. It's action vehicle.
I think the character.
Yeah, he plays a coward, but he's done that kind of thing before. He's played the fool turned into the serious guy by the end of it. I've seen that a million times with him. The movie, to me, the whole movie felt very familiar to me. The story, it was an episode of Star Trek like that. Next Generation, cause and effect.
Maybe that's what the novel. Maybe that's where the novel.
Well, I mean,
from.
it is a premise that's been done a lot in science fiction.
Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned Groundhog Day, you mentioned Star Trek.
It's Aliens meets Groundhog's Day, and I think it's a solid action piece, but I didn't think it was, I think again, when we were talking about Copland. Same thing with Stallone. To me, it's the same thing. I felt that the role could have went to somebody you don't expect to be. Cast somebody that is small, that you would say, oh yeah, he's a coward. He is not an action star, and then let him put that suit on and kick ass by the end. Then I'd be convinced and say, yeah, that's a great.
The only problem with that is the studio would not make the film then, right? So we're kind of as much as we would want to see that, like an Adam Driver or somebody, whoever. Unfortunately, when you're at the mercy of the studio, right, they're going to be like, well, we need,
of course, you get a bankable star, Tom Cruise, but
exactly.
he's probably the top action star we have at this point, right? I mean, they're
pretty much the only one, I think.
Becoming a dying breed. Stallone was like, where are the action stars today? Expendables flop, the latest one. It's just, it's kind of sad, actually.
Theatric. I mean, even Tom Cruise is in his 60s. I mean, so I mean, it's not like there's a young crop of men out there. Even the Expendables, Jason Statham, all Rock. The Rock, he's also the same thing.
But they do with the Fast and Furious films. That's all they pretty much do. Is kind of like that. So,
well,
let's get into the cast then, since we're kind of already. We've kind of let a little bit of it unfurl. Tom Cruise as Major William Cage, Emily Blunt as Sergeant Rita Vertasky, also known as the Angel of Verdun, also known as the Heavy Metal Bitch, because of that sword. Like that sword was badass. You got to admit when she comes out
she's like Thanos.
Yeah.
Fucking Thanos with like the helicopter blade or something. I don't know what that
she
thing
was out dragging that sword behind her, and it's just like it was like amazing. The great and oh my god, if maybe this might be the shining spot for Eric is Bill Paxton as
great.
Master Sergeant Farrell, tip of the spear.
I would have liked to see more of him though. Again, I think he was a little underused in this movie as for comic relief. I mean, so playing up on the character of,
yes, he's definitely could be a descendant of Hudson.
Yeah.
And then Brendan Gleeson as General Brigham and Noah Taylor as Dr. Noah Carter. That's pretty much it. It's a small cast. There's a lot of people in it, but they're kind of ancillary. They're kind of like the grunts that in J Squad and stuff. But that's kind of what you need to know. And basically, what happens is, aliens have, and I think Eric, actually, your initial what you said to me, your thought process was this is kind of like Starship Troopers, and I can understand that as well. That DNA of these organically strange aliens kind of invade, they're almost basically taking over the earth. And there's going to be one massive kind of final engagement that's going to go on. And Tom Cruise's character is just like he's a media guy. He used to have an advertising company. So he's like in rank only. But the general wants to send him out on the front lines to sell the war. And he's like, thanks, but no thanks. I respectfully decline. And he's like, well, you have no choice.
Yeah.
So he tries to leave, and then he gets kind of done dirty, right, Nick? As becomes like they just make him into a private, and they kind of throw him.
That's why I think calling him a coward, he certainly plays that up, but this was what he was doing before he got into the military. Like he never went through basic training. They kind of recruited him and made him an officer because of his media skills. And that's what he was doing. He's doing all the propaganda so I don't blame him for being like, look, you're putting me in the front line. I'm going to die. So that's one of the issues I had. Like one of the questions, like, why is the general doing that when he knows, that's what's going to happen? And then when Tom Cruise's character Cage kind of threatens him and says, look, if you do this to me, I'm gonna, if you know, I'll make the propaganda movie, but your head's gonna be on the line, and then I could see maybe that's the motivation for doing that. Like Done Dirty is, it's a death sentence. Like he pretty much knocks him out and says, okay, this is a private, he's a deserter, put him out there front line. You know, it's like kind of like, what's going on? I wish there was a backstory because Gleason is great, and you don't get that.
I think I have the answers to both of those.
Okay.
Number one, right? Roland, is not uncommon for journalists to be embedded on the front lines, like in Vietnam, right? That's really where people saw. The Vietnam War was the first one where people saw the war on TV.
That's where it was.
That's what they were doing. Now, the second part is why would he do that? I think we need to skip forward in the film to the scene where Cage and Vertasky go back to the general
and have the little
and Tom Cruise says, "This is beyond you." Right? He goes, "You have to understand that this." So like, you know, his warlike, you know, his general strategic thinking might work in a regular war. He goes, and what we're dealing with because of the psychic abilities and the time travel, he goes, "This is beyond you." So, you know, Brendan Gleeson probably didn't realize that it was going to be no one realized it was going to be a total slaughter, you know, because they didn't know the capabilities that the aliens were actually sending out false signals and they actually knew what was going to happen and could set traps. So, and that's when he comes in and he, you know, he's got that heightened reality of this is so beyond like what you think we need to do. So I think that might kind of speak to his motivations, is that he's just thinking things, you know, kind of on a flat plane of this is how war is. We embed somebody, you go, and yeah, it's going to be brutal, but you know, you've got all the, you know, the squads there with you and you'll be fine, but you got people there.
But otherwise it just seems like a plot device to kind of get Tom Cruise's character in there to,
yeah.
And you got him to run. That was his own run scene.
Yeah, 2 minutes. That's right. 2 minutes. That's Tom Cruise running.
That's right.
Okay, get that out of the way. And I mean, that's problematic for me too. That whole setup of like, why don't they know this guy who's actually on like all the news stations?
Yeah, they've seen him everywhere, right?
Everybody knows what the guy looks like, and he's like around 45, 50 here. So but he does say, "Look at me. Do I look like a new recruit?"
Yeah, and
they have to brush it aside. Yeah. So, but I think it's a commentary sort of on like war at that point when the whole thing's happening. Throw everybody at it.
They need everybody.
They have no bodies left. Yeah. So the reality of war, and that there, like I said, you know, I do watch this every year, sort of, and I get a kick out of it. It's mostly background noise, but it's just something I don't have to invest too much thinking into it because the story, there's lacking. You know, I know you live every day, but you don't get buffer when you come back to restart your day. so if you can't hold a gun in the first day, you're never going to hold a gun.
I have my biggest problem was the end, like towards the end.
Sure.
When all of a sudden they recruit, he goes back to recruit J Squad.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're in the movie now. Like,
yeah.
How many times did he restart the day? Many times. We're talking, you know, every little bit. There's expositional dialogue that's telling you that they've jumped, you know, that they did this so many times. So why did they wait till then to get them involved?
Because that's a big gap. Because at that point,
and why was J Squad at that point? Oh, now all of a sudden they believe him.
Well, you know. let's roll back. First of all, the origins of this part, this kind of living your day over and over again, comes from video games. So that was the kind of genesis for this, is of you can keep respawning. They wanted the film to also have a light tone, so it was not supposed to be some deep philosophical thing.
Yeah.
To the J Squad point, though, Eric, if I'm not mistaken, that's at the point where he leaves Vertasky behind, right? Because he didn't want her to die anymore. Yeah. Right after the helicopter scene, and he decides. Remember when he goes to see her and then he leaves? She goes, "What's," you know? She recites that line. "What do you got? Was something on my face?"
Okay.
And he leaves and he's like, "I need somebody. I need something else. There's got to be a different path. It can't be her. Well, it could be her, but I don't want it to be her because she's going to die for real."
And he leaves the squad early every time. Yeah,
that's when he goes goes back to J Squad and say, "This is what's happening." You know.
Okay.
And he does the same. He kind of does the same speech, like, "You're not going to believe what I'm saying, but the more you listen, you know, the more you'll believe. Hopefully."
So you think the whole time they actually did believe him, right?
No, I don't think he ever went to them. Like he started doing all
they were kind of talking amongst themselves before he story before he comes into the room. Like he's standing there watching them talk about the situation, and they're talking as if they believe him. That this is whatever, and then he enters the room, and then they're like he does
last meeting, right? But I think what happened, at least for me in the storyline, that's why I sort of suspend disbelief with this, is that and they repeat this constantly, that he escapes the squad to go meet the Emily Blunt. So he leaves right away. Essentially, once he goes into physical, they do training, he bolts. Yeah. So he's gone essentially until he gets back on the ship. So I think that's where he's not doing as much of the explaining with them. And then when he comes back, he finally does it because now he has no alternative. And
and we get those little in-between scenes.
That's how I rationalize it. I'm not saying it's perfect.
I mean, it's
and to be fair, like I said, I saw it once, and so I maybe these little.
I'm just rationalizing the first time now. Don't worry about it.
and as we've said with other, when you're dealing with time travel and time shifting, there's a lot of things to keep in the air, right? There's a lot of juggling you have to do. So
very true. Yeah.
We're kind of watching it, but the brilliance of this film is like the first 30 or 40 minutes is him basically reliving the beginning part of the movie over and over, and it doesn't feel like they race to the end, because then you kind of get the middle part over and over again, like he. The first couple of tries when he gets killed, and then he tries to save like the big guy in his underwear, and he gets killed instead. Then he's kind of learning, like he gets to a certain point, and then we kind of leave that behind. We don't have to see that. And then when he meets Rita Vertasky, we kind of get those middle scenes over and over where she's kind of keeps killing him, and it's like, it's like, no, don't kill me. It's like, get up, maggot.
What you had said, comparison to a video game, and I think that's where the author of the book was inspired, and I really get that feeling of those shooter games, the first person perspective, and you get killed and then you start over. But when you play those games, sometimes you reach a point where you're like, I can't pass this level, and then you're like, let me try something different. And I think that's what the character's doing. Like he's probably done a month's worth of reliving this scene, and he's like, okay, let me roll under the thing. And the first time he gets run over by the truck, it's like, why the hell did he do that?
Step right, look left. I mean, he's literally that granular. Step right, look left. That's totally a controller thing.
Yeah, so he's all kind of thinking he must have done this so many times that it's all memorized. He's counting the steps and figuring this out. And that's what you do in a video game. You kind of really time it. And
that's I think the brilliance of the film is it kind of takes you through these things over it, and it doesn't get boring, because each time they show you like a different thing. Like he'll come in, like they go back to the Get Up magazine, but then he's coming in and he covers the cards, and he's able to, we see him that he's memorized like the people's names, so he's trying to use that, and that doesn't really work. That doesn't work when he kind of, they just think he's creepy, and then so I really like the different attempts that he keeps making. And then when he rolls away and Paxton's like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's a great bit. It's a great bit.
Totally great bit.
Every time he gets ahead of Bill Paxton, like especially in that scene when he's like, should I give you 50, Master Sergeant? And he's like, yeah, give me 50. Because he wasn't ready to be that what you knew that was going to happen.
Well, that's what I find. That's what made for me the movie entertaining. The fact that there was a lot of humor.
Yeah,
it's such a stark sort of. This is definitely a dystopian type of thing happening, and you get a lot of that humor, like especially the first half of the film. Like you say, the reoccurring stuff is just it's great.
Yeah,
and I think that's my turning point with the film. Is I know it's not a true ensemble, but once you get into that repetition, that motion, you actually look forward to the guy saying the stupid joke, because you want to see how they tweaked it a little bit, and how they moved it, and it is a supporting cast, right? Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, and honestly, one of my favorite things about the film too is the opening scene, because it reminds me of Saving Private Ryan, the way the war is shot, and the jittery camera, the dirt hitting, and that intensity of him freaking out. It felt very real, for that moment, and I kind of like the way that we entered that. For me,
Doug Lyman shot it in 35 millimeter because he wanted it actually to have the Saving Private Ryan look. He didn't want to shoot digital.
To me, I think it did.
And that beach scene took a long time for them to shoot. They were having, that was like a massive undertaking. The thing we didn't mention about this is basically how did Tom Cruise get these magical powers? Is when there's only there's something called the alpha alien, and there's only like 1 in 6 million or whatever. They're very rare, but if you happen to kill one and the blood gets on you or in you, you inherit the time shifting abilities that these aliens have. Mm-hmm. And Rita Vertasky had that. That's how she became this warrior that everybody was so respectful of, is because she was the first one, or one of the first people to encounter it. And then she was able to make herself into a supreme warrior. And it's interesting, in the very beginning of the film, Brendan Gleeson's character, the general, kind of says that. He goes, "Oh, look at her." He's giving credit to the mech armor. He goes, "Oh, we put these people in the mech armor and you see what could happen." She was probably just as horrible of a soldier as Tom Cruise, that she got killed pretty early, but happened to kill an alpha. So then she got that, she had that ability. But then the caveat is, if you get injured and you don't die and you get a blood transfusion, you'll lose it. So she at some point had gotten injured, but saved, and then she lost it. And then Tom Cruise encountered an alpha when he blew that thing, he had that claymore like right on his chest, and it like blew like right in front, blew that thing.
It's a good scene, actually. I like that scene.
But was that a plot hole for you? Like, at first I was like, okay, once they lose it, what's to keep them from thinking, okay, I can just regenerate again? But then they kind of add that line when Tom Cruise loses. He's like, I feel like I've lost it, which to me was kind of a cheap. It was kind of a cheap way to kind of get out of that plot hole a little bit. But because I was like, how did she survive?
Yeah, it would have made a difference because he got a blood transfusion anyway. So she would have told him, you're out. And that's what
I'm saying. Like, even with her though, like, how did she not get killed again? But I guess if she had that feeling, like, okay, I've lost it, I'm not seeing those visions anymore, or whatever it might have been, I guess they would be like, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to
play that up a little more. The visions couldn't play up.
Because how would she know? How would she really know unless it didn't?
You might be able. There might be. They didn't go into like the mystical if there's like a feeling about it. But I think that scene really kind of, in a weird way, ups the ante, because we got so used to him just dying and resetting. And now it's like, well, nobody can die now. Now it's for real. So it's almost like you're on your last life in a video game. It's kind of like,
this is it, right?
Okay, we have to be very careful now. We or whatever we do, like, this
game over, man. Game over.
So it's very interesting, and I think Emily Blunt. Eric, I consider her a lead just as much as Tom Cruise. I don't consider her in a supporting role whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely not. She's fantastic.
She is so important to the story.
She is. I love her because she's got so much range. She does everything. She could do horror. She could do action. She could, Mary Poppins, for God's sake. I mean, she's wonderful. She's just such a great. She's one of the greats that we have. And,
if we're lucky, she might be more than wonderful. She might be fantastic.
Fantastic Four.
If we can
I think she would be great. That's what fans want.
Would love nothing more than to have Krasinski and her together.
That would be great.
Sue Storm and Mr. Fantastic.
But
she is a very important part of the of this, because she's kind of like the guide and she's the mentor. He doesn't know shit from Shinola. He doesn't know anything about anything. And he learned some of the patterns, right? When he went to go find her, he's like, okay, he's kind of shooting. But she really since she had the ability, she really knows its ins and outs and what to do. But the great thing about this film is they find out that all that is useless anyway, because the aliens have been playing them. The aliens were kind of like toying with them because they had the ability to kind of fool them and make them think that going or making this assault was going to work. And it was kind of like the aliens knew all, or could just reset it at whenever they wanted to. And that's probably what they've been doing anyway. It's resetting it till they became like unstoppable. So it's really interesting. It's more than Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray learns the piano every day. It's kind of like, it's not just one day. He could live for days, and then when he gets killed, it resets and he's got to do it over, which could be more drudgery, Roland. Like, imagine getting that far into the mission, like when they got to the helicopter, right? The helicopter scene, that, I don't know that was a day. I don't think, they don't really tell you how long some of these stretches are, like with the training and stuff, because he's got to go through getting away from the J Squad. He's got to find Vertaski. He's got to explain it to her. Then he's got to train. So to go that far and then get killed again is kind of it's like, oh Christ, I gotta go start over.
Essentially they're going all over Europe.
It is kind of frustrating. It's quite jarring when they reach that certain point and then all of a sudden he's back to the very beginning. And I'm like, oh man,
Yeah, just like you get to that, like Nick said, when you get to that certain point in a video game, then you get killed and you get sent back to the point that you started. You got to do it over again.
I honestly, I guess I didn't really think of it that way. But now that you guys, bring that up, but yeah, I think it does. I'm looking at it in a different vein now. I think I'm not a gamer, so that should be the tell. Dean knows this. I've never been a gamer. My sons are a gamer. They're probably more into this film than I am, or will ever be. But yeah, it's an interesting premise in that front. If that's indeed what they had in mind,
yeah, it was. It was the notion of video games and respawning and kind of starting over again, which is which is an interesting jumping off point, But there's a real story behind it, When you get those, Roland, you get those glimpses, like I was going to say earlier, like when he meets like when a couple of guys find Tom Cruise like walking down the alley, guys, don't do this. Like we get some of those extra, like even though he's reliving the same things, we get some different scenes from it as well, right? When he's just he's like, all right, I'm going to close my eyes, let's do this, and he kind of
and that's the enjoyable thing I think about it is that they're essentially like almost like an improv scene where you never know what's going to happen, and that's the excitement for me, at least, of watching that film is you like that banter that changes, and it's an evolution of the character. So to me personally, I think with Tom Cruise, I know people didn't really think of it as like an oh my god film. But this is probably the greatest evolution arc he's ever had in the character because he's had to revisit it constantly. Like I just watched Mission Impossible. He is the same guy from the opening credits. He actually, I just did a podcast of the newest Mission Impossible. And it's like a mashup of like Batman voice and, James Bond. I'm like, oh my God, stop already. It was like 2 hours and change of that. This one at least gave me some sort of variety when he was speaking, or even the anticipation of the shots. He knew somebody was going to die right next to him. He had to anticipate it. So there's that weight that he carried.
Whether he was going to let him live or not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then
the choices he made
every time. And the point, like we're saying, the one guy who fought naked, at the end, he just didn't care. Let him die.
Yeah, because it didn't change anything.
And that was
saving him.
As a person, he got changed in that way, that he was a much different person. Besides the plot holes of, he shouldn't have been that buff after training for one day, but that just can't happen. If you can't run, you can't run. But yeah, to me, the way he changed in this film is it showed more range than actually most of his films. Even though it's the same delivery style of when he explains, and he has that same like open hand thing, like, "Hey, just listen to me." Yeah. He does that a lot in his film. Like he tilts his head. He knows his best side, but still, I think the story allowed it to evolve, and the people, even if they're for a little bit, you kind of got connected to them, even there for a little bit because of the repetition.
Yeah.
So you're always hearing the guy say the bad joke. So you know that guy because he made the bad joke. So that repetition is always there. And I think that's the trick of this movie of why it can be appealing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting wrapper that this movie is in of something that's kind of, it's repetitive, but it's not. Like, the start point is always repetitive. Just about you talk about how Buffy was in the suits. Those mech suits weighed 85 pounds. That they wore, that him and Emily Blunt wore. And it took about a half hour to get on, and then they got it down to like 30 seconds to get in and out of that. So those mech suits, were practical also. And you see how much of when he was in full badass mode, because then he had like the mech suit where the rockets are coming up from behind him, and they're like flipping up, and
he's asking for specific weapons.
He says that guy, he goes, "Get me 3 more mags, get me he goes, "Get it." The guy's looking at him like, "What?"
An extra battery.
An extra battery. Yeah.
It's like,
that was key. Yeah, we needed that.
He gets killed by Emily Blunt when he first meets her, and the first death, she steals his battery. He's like, "You're stealing my battery?"
She's like, "What are you doing?" Like when he's laying there, right? He's like, "What are you doing?" or something, right? He wasn't dead yet. He was like wounded. right? And he's like, "What are you doing?" And it's like she just like it happens in war. Like they take the ammo off the people. You know, they take what they need. They take the things they have. So
that is what I appreciated. That it was a perspective of authenticity that you rarely see, even in sci-fi film. Even though, again, you made the correlation of Starship Troopers. I was remembering that's the end when they capture their Omega and Starship Troopers. I'm like, wait, oh no, it's a different movie. That's how similar it is. I was waiting for that scene. I was like, don't they pull him out of the ground? Oh no, different movie.
Yeah, and I think that's all throwaway. You know, you could have made the ending whatever you wanted to, and for me, what I was thinking about this movie isn't about the ending. It's about the journey. Like the ending is a throwaway. You know, it's not what happens at the end is really not important to the journey and to the story of these two people about Rita Vertasky, who had the power and understood it, now has to watch someone else that has it and kind of say, find me again, but is not going to remember that. Then has to be told, has to be told everything again. And I keep going back to the helicopter scene because that's the one where he makes her the coffee. And he's like, "Oh, you like sugar?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, wait. No. It's 3 sugars." And then she's like, "How did you know that? How many times were we here?"
Yeah.
Because that's when he didn't want to find
his life.
He didn't find the helicopter, right? He said he couldn't find the helicopter keys. I don't know where they are. But then he said, "Oh, you take 3 sugars." And she's like, "How many times have we been here?" Because he didn't want, because he said, this is where you don't continue. So he grew there as well.
He tried so hard but he realized, just like that guy, that he tried to save and then had to give up. He had to give up on her too at that point.
Yeah,
until he shifted the way he was going. But the kiss is what bothers me a little bit. Because
at the end,
she doesn't. I could have done better. He should have kissed her. Like, I don't think her kissing him made any sense if she didn't have any memory of their journey. Right. And I think that's one of the big criticisms I've been hearing about the movie, too. Like, it was just kind of a stereotypical throw it in. Like, she's romantic. They had a kiss, whatever. But I think for him to kiss her makes sense. Him kissing her. Because he fell in love with her. Like, he was spending so much time. But she had no idea. Like, she spent the day.
I'll argue that. I'll argue that.
Go for it. Roland.
I will say, for somebody who's probably relived their life maybe 1,000 or 2,000 times, to find out that somebody has cared about them to make sure they're alive.
That's valid.
After they've said, "I know I'm going to die, and I got to keep dying I only care about war." That would have put her guard. If he kissed her, that would have been rapey. I think on the other way, her approaching him is that she finally found somebody who understood her. And
when I rewatch it, I'm gonna have that in my mind and see.
It's not so much. It's not so much a romantic kiss. I think it's more of a.
Thank you.
And it's all for naught anyway, because she doesn't remember him at the end, and he just laughs. I think that was a So I'm glad that they didn't really go there. Some kind of
I like that too.
Developed.
I like that too. I like that too.
Yeah,
but why?
It didn't need to. Yeah.
Why did it go back to that moment? That's another loophole I can't figure out.
I think.
You mean why to go back to the point when he's on the helicopter?
To the very
point
beginning,
of arrival.
Because
go ahead, Roland.
Everything changed with her.
I think because he did the big kill. No, I think it's because he did the big kill. He was able to choose when to go back as the last effort of power. That he was able to choose where he wanted to go back to.
Eric, what do you think?
Means everybody lived.
I don't really know, but Roland made a really good point.
I'll give another point of view then. I thought about it as well. I think it's because once the Omega got killed, the Omega is the ultimate underground cauliflower. I don't know, it's not really cauliflower looking, but it's plant looking thing. All the other stuff never happened. There was no need for that big offensive, right? Because all that stuff didn't need to happen, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're all these things like left the battlefield, or they're all gone. So I think it brought him back to the point. He wasn't going to go back to the point where he was at the boot camp again, because that didn't need to happen anymore. Because that has been that kind of respawn point has been kind of wiped from existence, because all the the Omega's dead, so they're not even going to be mobilizing. it went back to all of a sudden, oh, they're all dead. We don't need to have this offensive the next day because the offensive was going to be the next day. So I think it kind of reset the game board, as it were. If you think of it as a video game, it's kind of like the offensive was never they never got to the point where the offensive was happening. So that wasn't a spawn point anymore for him. He went back to like kind of the last.
I like my idea.
Well, it kind of makes sense because everybody's back. Everybody's lived. Everybody's alive.
Yeah.
J Squad's. They're all back.
Yeah.
Even Bill Paxton. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that it's slightly playing like the first day, but not. But he's strolling through the camp as a major. Everything. But I think I thought it was just a nice touch. That she's exactly in the same spot, and that it comes up to her, and the fact that she doesn't remember, like, who are you? Like, and he just, it was a really,
But she, at that point, like a lot of people are like, does she remember too? Because she's gone through her part of it.
I'm going to say yes.
She obviously knows that he's a major now. It's not like she's looking at some private, like, what are you? And she treats him the same way, like says the same line that became like their little catchphrase.
Well, he's going to have a lot of explaining to do, but her incidents happened all before that, right? And she was she's still the angel of Verdun because that still happened.
Mm-hmm.
So she had the power and lost it, and she was in that special training facility. So she just wasn't just a everyday run of the mill soldier. She was still who she was. And the smile is, well, I get to explain this to her, right?
And
kind
she's
of
gonna
like,
live.
he's going to be able to tell her the story of what happened, but again, it's going to be so hard to believe, and Tom Cruise sells that, like that, like when he did it to the general, he's like, listen, he did it the same thing twice, you're not going to believe it, but the more I tell you, and Brendan, then the secretary walks in and he's like, Brendan Glee's like, oh, those are great parlor tricks, but it's like, no, that's not parlor tricks.
Yeah, that's not parlor tricks. But that's actually one of my biggest holes of the unbelief when you present something in the world of space aliens that are like spin bots or whatever they are, and you're like, really cool. I don't believe in other things. Okay, listen, the fact that you have like a spin bot freaking alien jumping out of the ground and killing and screaming.
Yeah, they're kind of inky and they're tentacly.
Yeah, I would believe a lot of shit at that point. You've told me, listen, it's vampires too. Yes, they fucking are. Yes. Because now we have aliens. Yes,
everything is possible.
Everything's possible.
It's just I think it's a fun movie. I think it's a movie that
absolutely.
You could think hard, like we said about Back to the Future. We could think just as hard about Back to the Future and come up with the same loopholes, and I think that's just a foible of the genre. There's always going to be something that is not going to be covered or thought of, or and in this one it does it like Eric said. I don't think Eric was expecting those lighthearted things, but that's one of the things that Tom Cruise wanted. He goes, I want this to have those lighter touches, for this to be a fun, because it could be death and desolation because they keep, they're getting so overrun. And when you see the map in the beginning on like the CNN or whatever, it's like all of Europe. It's like from France to Russia. It's like overrun. So it could have been like this downer existential thing, and instead it was kind of lighthearted and just you went along for the ride and you kind of let it take you, and that was the most fun about it is reliving the days over and over and the different ways he got killed.
I would even say it redefined the genre a little bit, to bring that more not too wisecracking, but it was a great balance of that genre that people have tried to repeat and probably not said, hey, I was influenced by this movie. But I think the director of this movie really wears his influences on his sleeve and goes, this is what I influenced. I want Saving Private Ryan feel. I want that vibe. I want that intensity. I want this sort of humor. And I think with the rest of the film too, they were able to do that. A lot of people just don't credit it because it's a cult following, but it's not critics film, I'll say. And so people don't really want to admit to it, but I do think it changed the genre, and it is Tom Cruise, but it's just not the stories that Tom Cruise does. He had
done like, I think, what was it, Oblivion? I think he had done Oblivion the year before. He's dabbled. He's done Minority Report. So he kind of dabbles in it, but
he's always had that intensity that this one didn't. It's a
This one
different
had
kind
a
of
little bit
a
of a
different level of intensity.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, a
that's what I
little
mean
bit
by
of
it's different.
yeah, a little bit of a lighter for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Uh,
see a lot of World of Worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
see
see a lot
because
of
he's
that.
such
I
Yeah.
see that too.
because
Yeah.
he's such a dick in that,
Yeah.
and he's trying to be funny, and he's
Yeah.
he's playing that up, and then by the end of the movie he changes.
Yeah.
And so you see that progression as well. So that's what it reminded me of. There was is in his performance was a lot of that.
But I think in this one, a lot of time he's the butt of the joke. Not
Yeah.
he's not making the joke. He's
Yeah.
not sarcastic in that sense. He's
Yeah.
sort of like out of the only joke he makes is like the sex joke of like, hey, have you tried everything to transfer those powers?
Have
And
you tried
he
to
gets smashed for that.
she said.
Yeah, yeah.
multiple times? Have you tried it multiple times?
Yes.
You're such a dork. Like that's
Yeah.
not
That's great. That was a great thing. Like, hey, they got rid of that sexual tension right away. And I was
yeah.
like, thank
She's
God
like yeah.
they
She
did
goes
that.
not even close. Not gonna work.
So and yeah, War of the World, same thing. But I think he's just a borough, Jersey City or Bayonne, whatever they set that in, and he tried to get that snarky tone, but he doesn't deliver it well. This I felt the script was good enough for him. It was catered to his speech pattern, his delivery pattern. I think this is a short story, so they made it new for him. I think they found a good balance of and they knew how to bring out his speech pattern and delivery pattern.
At this point in his career, he knows what works for him. You were talking about the gestures and like which side is his best. He's done it so many times, so he knows what works. I don't think he's done a bad movie that I can see where I looked in. I'm like, why? The choices he makes. It's just sometimes marketing doesn't work, and sometimes
Interview with a Vampire. There you go.
Even that, in hindsight, that was fun. That was a good movie too. In hindsight, So,
I think it's good. I think it still holds up.
He's not great.
The other interesting thing about this movie is that he shares a lot of screen time with Emily Blunt. So it is, I look at it as kind of like two leads. I don't look at her in a supporting role because a lot of the story hinges on her knowledge and she's kind of became like the mentor to him.
For sure.
Which you don't see. Again, you don't really see that in Tom Cruise movies. Usually he's got all the knowledge, or he's got all the abilities, or he kind of is the everyman that rises. But in this one, he's kind of, you saw how many times he got killed. He got his neck broken. He got his back broken. My leg is broken, so he was a hot mess until, we don't know how many respawns he had to have to get to where he was. But obviously it was a lot because, memorizing all the people's names, memorizing everything that everybody said.
Down to the inch or the millisecond or whatever he had to do,
And then when they leave the general's office and Vertaski's like, so what do we do? He goes, I don't know. We've never got this far.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
a video game line too. That's a video game
it reads well. It really reads well the way they go through that.
And that's
discovery reads well.
They walk out and they get killed by they like all the army people are waiting for them. Then in the next scene, they're driving out of the garage instead. They're kind of making a getaway. So I think it's very interesting.
It's interesting. Those are holes for me. If he gave it to him, why let him shoot him outside? He would just do it inside. And those are some of the holes. But you got to sort of this is the kind of movie. I'm willing to push those holes away because I think it's
if you watch it enough times, you might find ways to explain them, like you all did with all the holes we came up with. I think it's that kind of a good movie where there's enough thought you could suspend disbelief, but also maybe find logical. Maybe they put all these things in there for us to kind of find.
Could be.
And if this was a real video game, Emily Blunt's character is so good that they would have made like a prequel game where you play her. She would be the player character, showing her adventures. You know what I mean?
Idea.
Now that you mentioned that, in 2016 they had started tossing around the idea of a sequel already. Like there was that kind of interest in this idea for the film. So Emily Blunt's like absolutely, Tom Cruise like absolutely. They were kind of working on it. They couldn't get the studios to kind of, I guess, affix a budget to it. They're still interested, but what happened now is it looks like there might be an HBO Max series, not with these people, but about this. But what I think Doug Liman was saying, the director, he's like, the sequel would actually be kind of a prequel sequel. So it might have focused on Vertasky and what she was doing. Yeah. And they're still, as of last year or the year before, both leads were very interested, but they're, Emily Blunt's like, with my schedule and Tom Cruise's schedule, I don't know how we're going to be able to kind of make it mesh, but the desire is there. I don't know. I would love to see a sequel. I just don't think people, I don't know if it's in the cards for a movie that most people seem to have missed at the time. Even though it's pretty popular. It's pretty popular on streaming, but I don't know that people would go out for it again. Maybe if they made it like a direct to video or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe another 10 years.
Yeah. And Tom Cruise is still running.
Yeah, he's still running. He's still running. That guy. That guy's never gonna stop.
I could see it as a series. Like Last of Us had that video game vibe, right? Because it was based on video game.
An 8-episode or 4 episodes.
Or like even Band of Brothers, where it's like the whole you get all the war stuff. You get all they kind of expand that, but no, I like the cast the way it is. I like everybody. I love Bill Paxton. Oh my God, when you watch him in roles like this, you miss him. It's like, oh God,
so good.
He's just so You're from the United States. I'm not. I'm from Kentucky.
Yeah, it's great. His mannerisms, the physicality is really, really good, and that's what you appreciate about. I think the whole film is everybody got their physicality done right, and just enough. It wasn't like where everybody was. Overbearing it was just enough. And even the guy who fights naked, they got rid of him after like 3 shots. They killed him and that's it. He just keeps dying. So you don't see that again.
Moments, right?
But I like that. I was like, okay, I got to laugh. And then I got to chuckle. And then like, okay, I'm enough. Let me move on to the next family, next people. And then I'm okay with that. So I think that's I think the pacing and the directing, the editing is really like spot on with this. The sound design is spot on. There's a lot of elements that you sort of don't think about, but that's a testament to the quality of work to put into this kind of film.
And like I said, I think the creature effects were really great. It was something unique, something different. Not the Martian looking guys and kind of formless and shapeless, but kind of all over the place.
And it dictated the energy of how the fight scenes, the battle scenes were.
Yeah, so and they had those mouths like whoa, and it's kind of like waves coming out of them and stuff like that. It's pretty. I thought it was something different. It was kind of neat, and it was kind of cool at the end when he made it to the lair. And the one came in, then kind of backed off, and then the alpha came, and they were kind of toying with him, and they wouldn't let him kind of kill himself.
That was aliens right there.
Yeah.
That was Ripley with the Queen.
Yeah,
sure.
And that whole scene to me was
same type of energy. It's like in a. It looks like an industrial place, right? And it's kind of like on the catwalks type thing, and he's trying to get kill himself as a last resort, but he couldn't.
I can see it. Like I said, I don't think they're shying away of the influence. I don't think they're shying away from we were influenced.
I think it's there.
I think I leaned into it a little bit, but then if you're honest about it, I think that's what makes it a better film.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than try and say no, I thought of this. No, we know where it came from.
Before we get to favorite scenes, I do have one thing to say.
What's that?
Battle is the great redeemer. It is the fiery crucible in which true heroes are forged. The one place where all men truly share the same rank, regardless of what kind of parasitic scum they were going in.
There you go. Get that on a shirt. I'd wear it.
Master Sergeant Farrell.
Yes.
Have to do that in honor of the great Bill Paxton.
Great.
He's definitely a descendant of Hudson. Maybe even Hudson in a different life. But he's just. I watch it and I just because you saw you could see how much fun Bill Paxton was having with that character, because he had an answer for everything. Come on with me, we'll get you sorted out. And it's like, and then they bring him to the barrier. So you're not taking me to a phone, are you?
Yeah.
No, I am not.
It said here you would ask for a phone. It said here you would do or say anything to get out of this. So it was, it's too bad he didn't get to come along with J Squad, but he wouldn't have believed it. He was too hard to sell. I think it was easier to sell the grunts on this whole thing because they seem to be astounded by his psychic abilities to understand everything. Bill Paxton's character is a little bit of a harder sell. And that guy never came. The maggot guy. That's all. That was his only role. It's like get up, maggot. Like he had one line. He had one line, and he did it like 20 times.
And is that the guy?
That was his whole thing in this. In the film, which is kind of interesting, right?
No, that's his own bit. Yeah, just he had as it went, he had fewer and fewer. That's all he had was get up, maggot by the end.
Get up, maggot.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, which I thought was great.
Yeah,
And
great,
that's
great
what
stuff.
they're saying. Like, they pulled people back, and they're like, okay, great. That was it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is if you've never seen it, and it is easy to
fun.
miss. Obviously, it's kind of especially with all the Mission Impossibles and the Top Gun Maverick that Tom Cruise did around this time, like that Oblivion, that wasn't a big film either. That was kind of like a sci-fi. Maybe those two films kind of steered him away from this, because that was right before that, and that was kind of a weird solitary movie, right? Where he's kind of like alone.
That didn't work for me with him.
Did you see Oblivion, Eric?
I saw it. I didn't like it that much.
I don't think so. No,
I saw parts of it. And it was kind of like alone on a planet, and kind of
they're like sentinels
technology thing, and he was dealing, like it was.
It's just too much Tom Cruise. I don't know if I can take that much.
Maybe that was the one that was too similar to After Earth or something. It was like they just seemed so interchangeable with their marketing. I don't know. They all
and then Matt Damon made one around the same time too. That
he had the mech suit too.
Yeah, well, he had like implants or something like that. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah, Elysium.
Yeah, Elysium. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so there was a lot of that stuff kind of around the same time, kind of going around. And then maybe this kind of, again, this made money. It made a lot of money. It just, they were already, kind of adjusting down the first weekend's receipts for the movie. Like they were expecting a certain amount, and they're already backing it down the first weekend it came out. So it did okay, but not,
not what they expected.
It just basically stateside made the budget back, and that is not, then you have to kind of rely on the worldwide sales. But like I said, it found its legs afterwards. So, or it found its mech suit afterwards. So do we want to run through some favorite scenes, or have we pretty much hit them all? I mean, mine's going to be easy. Pretty much any scene with Bill Paxton is going to be a favorite.
It's a good one.
And I think the helicopter scene, because that's when the movie slows down. It actually takes a breather. And they kind of get to talk a little bit about things, even before that, when they're driving. And he's like,
that's what I would have picked. Yeah. Because that's where like you kind of see how he's been through this almost like a lifetime, because he knows everything about her, and she's like surprised. She's like, about my brother, about what
or Hendrik. He says Hendrik, so don't ever say that name again.
But my guilty pleasure is the naked guy in the mech suit.
When they're like, to him,
because it's so funny. The dialogue is like Jesus Christ, Kimmel, what are you doing? And he's like, I gotta be free, man. I just love that line. And then seeing him, like he does try to save him. Paige tries to save him, and then realizes it doesn't do anything. So why waste time? He's like, I gotta stay on the path to get to the next step. So it's like, let him die. Which is awful, but it's part of it.
Yeah. There's definitely. I would say probably the car scene when they drive, because that's when there's more behind them. Like until then, it's very obvious what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's when you really understand. And later with the helicopter scene, that he's even done that car scene before, and he's just letting it go. He's trying to get to like a peaceful day, and he's trying to get as many peaceful days with her that he can in this crazy situation. And he's enjoying the little forgotten things. He's enjoying the little nuances of what he's reliving every day. And I think that sort of like turns it for me.
Because he's kind of like, why don't we just stay here overnight, and then tomorrow we'll figure it out. And
I forgot to hitch. I forgot to unhitch the trailer. He's like, it's okay. Any of that. And I watched that going, why didn't he freak out? He would have freaked out. But he didn't. I'm like, there's something more going on now.
Yeah.
And the pace of that whole scene changes, right? Because the movie's been like, stop, fast.
So it's very,
and they really slow it down for that scene, and it's like,
so
almost like a breather,
sort of,
rapid fire.
It just makes it a different kind of enjoyment, for that. I don't know if it's a favorite scene, but it's a different kind of enjoyment. That's what changes the story for me.
Eric?
Yeah.
Anything?
I don't know. I think I'd probably have to. I haven't seen it only the one time, but I'm trying to think. I guess that whole, I would have to agree. I mean, I even like the fact that they're losing their equipment along the way. They're walking that terrain. You see the broad England countryside, and they're traversing that. And then like she loses her suit, he loses his, because it runs out of power. And and it's like they come across the farm. And I think the scene that really got me too was when he went back to the farm, and you see the farm burning, and it's, you start to wonder, did he did he light the farm on fire? Did he do that? Or I wasn't sure about exactly what was going on in that moment, because when he went back, because she wasn't with him at that time, so it was like, so like, it was that like he's like burning the farm down because that's the finality of that or something. I don't know. I think I might have left the room. I at that point, I came back in.
I got
I'm like, what did I
emotional too.
miss?
Don't be shy. I got emotional too at that point.
Yeah. So it was kind of like he knew that this might be the last time. And, so there was that final, so that I was like, I kind of got that gist, and it was like, yeah, that could be.
Yeah. And,
I'm sure if I watch it again, I'll probably read more into it and, and be more, emotionally.
Yeah. Like I said, all those scenes were great when he figures out like, oh yeah, there's no other branching moves to make with her. So I have to cut her out of, like, I've learned everything I can anyway. I and this is actually, it's a selfish thing that he's doing, right? Because he has feelings for her. I don't want to say falling in love, but he absolutely has feelings and he cares for her. And he's like, in order, so him doing that was not necessary to victory. He could have let her die in the helicopter and gone on, but he decided, I'm not even going to encounter her now. I'm going to leave her.
Yeah.
And that's when he goes to Jay, and it goes, I need to figure out something else, because having her with me, as much as I love having her with me, is not an option, because, she meets it. If she dies and then I kill the Omega, she doesn't get reset.
Mm-hmm.
Or he didn't know that wouldn't, that
he didn't know where he would
happen.
Yeah.
Because he figured once you lose it, again, it was a fluke that, when he's floating and he opens his hand and all the pins are out of the grenades, and then it's like,
yep.
And then the blood like falls on top of him, so that that's,
yep.
I got the power back. Like, that was great.
So here's the final question. We're gonna wrap this up, but you, Eric, you teed it up perfectly.
Well, I'm sorry.
What?
Go ahead.
Were you gonna assume what it was?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So at the very end, the Omega gets blown up, and the Alpha was swimming down towards him. It just all happened underwater. It blew up. He got the blood on him, so he's able to reset again.
Yeah.
So the question is, does he obviously has the power. Does he keep that power, or does he go get a blood transfusion so he could live his life? Anybody answer? Anybody?
Silence.
He has that ability now, but he doesn't need it. Or do you keep it for a rainy day? If something happens to you, you can. But what if he goes?
Where's it different?
Let me put it this way. Here's the conundrum. I'm going to blow Roland's mind with this.
Yeah, sure.
Let's say we've got the power. I have the power, right? I got the power today. And let's say I live another 30 years before I die. Do I just now have to live 30 years over again? Do I go back to, right?
I think you would, yeah. You come back to that start point.
Yeah.
But I think that's why, I think he does have the power.
Because he obviously resets,
Yeah.
But so the premise of the movie is that in war, you die quickly. So it was an easy thing for him to keep dying and coming back and not have to make up a lot of time. But now that he's got it,
has to have surgery in 30 years, you wouldn't come back
unless he needed blood.
Yeah, which is every surgery.
Yeah.
The difference is that this wasn't.
Well, then there wouldn't be a sequel,
blood,
then, right?
Well, unless it was a prequel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the Omega's blood. So obviously it does have that time shifting power, because that's what the Omega does. But everything else was the Alpha blood, right?
I thought it was the Alpha blood, because the Alpha was coming down and got killed. Also, the Alpha was swimming. The Alpha was swimming
without the Omega. Yeah. So that's why it's like I think there's enough variables where you don't know, and that's where like the twist is. Like, is he gonna like relive this again? Is it? I don't know. And that's why I think going back to that point is very interesting. It's like, if they did do a sequel, would they do it from that point? Because they have to do the battle again, and then would there be something different that would make it be like, okay, well, the Omega's not really gone, or something. Who knows?
Well, he could have gained a more but maybe much more than just that ability.
I think
too.
that's where I think it sets it
control
up
of time.
for,
if we're dealing
for
with the
story.
Omega, maybe he has knowledge that,
Well,
maybe it's better insight as to maybe where they come from or whatever, perhaps he's tapped into something more than just jumping, so who knows?
Whatever they do, I hope if they make a sequel, they don't film two of them back to back, and I hope one of them doesn't go back to the Old West for the alien invasion. That's all I have to say about the sequel plans, if they have any, is that they don't do any of those things.
None of that, please.
And then have
no dating mother. You can't go back farther enough to date his mom. You can't have that. No dating, no trying to date her mothers. None of that, please.
It's definitely worth revisiting, I think, but I'm still
I like watching it.
I'm
It
still
does
on
have
the
its plot holes.
I still I still have the Tom Cruise thing, but I think, you guys made some really great points about, the nuances of his performance. So I'll check it out again. And,
I think as our other good friend of the show and guest, Andrew Cremeen, says, it's a grower, not a shower. I think it's one that when you watch it, like when it's on, it's a remote drop for me. When it's on, I'm just going to pick it up wherever it is. Cause it's that kind of fun movie that you don't have to ramp up to. Like you can kind of get it 20 minutes in. If you've already seen it, and you're kind of like, okay, we're in it and it's moving. And that's the I think Nick said it, or Roland, like the breakneck pace of the film kind of keeps you moving. Like it doesn't give you a lot of time. It keeps you kind of off kill. It doesn't give you a lot of time to stop and think about it. It's just kind of days keep resetting and we keep seeing him learn. And it's such a great film.
It's definitely a great premise, a great story. I just, as of right now, I just wish, we could have seen maybe somebody else in the role. But I think
see that.
Like I said, I think I can learn to, I'm not so anti Tom Cruise, mind you. I'm just, to me, he's just a very sort of that kind of actor where it's like he's just
I think.
It's like a safe choice for a type of movie of this kind of magnitude and action, and Tom Cruise, that's like,
I think David Spade was making Tommy Boy at the time, so he wasn't available for.
He would have nailed it. He would have nailed it.
I don't know who. I really don't have anybody in mind per se, but it's just.
Who? Daniel Day-Lewis, I think, would have been an amazing
he
job.
Would want to be one of the aliens. He would want to go method.
He would live like an alien for like 5 months. Learn how to time travel.
Comes up to Tom Cruise, says, "I drink your milkshake."
That's it. He would have came back a cobbler from another time, and he would have done it.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we hope I think that's gonna do it for this episode. We hope you check out Edge of Tomorrow. It's currently streaming on HBO Max or Max, whatever they keep changing it. It'll be called something else in a couple of months anyway. But whatever the HBO streaming service is, it's on there now. And of course, it's available for rent everywhere. So, it's a fun one. Definitely check it out. It's a fun watch. It's probably rated R, but it's pretty fit. There's no really bad words in it or anything. It's not terribly horrible. Might not even be rated R. I'm not even sure.
I'm gonna look.
No, yeah, could be a solid PG.
Now I gotta look.
Yeah,
live, die, repeat.
Yeah, it's actually
all you need is kill. I kind of like Edge of Tomorrow better than All You Need Is Kill. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
but live, die, repeat.
That would fly as a title today.
Where is it? Wikipedia doesn't even have the rating. That's weird.
I think it was either PG-13.
Yeah, probably
because there wasn't a lot of
53 minutes. PG-13.
There you go.
Just for the shooting.
Either way, just watch it anyway. Yeah, just watch it anyway. It looks like ink, so don't worry about it. It's fine. It's like octopus. Someone killed an octopus or squid, whatever.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
So, Roland Uruci, thank you so much for joining us.
As always.
Don't forget to check out the Ready Speaker podcast on YouTube. We'll drop a link to that in the show notes. Mr. Nick Leshi, thank you for not dressing up as
a naked
General Brigham or as the naked guy or as Rita Vertasky. I'm glad he didn't bring out a giant sword and start swinging it at the camera. But Nick has the City of Kick blog, and we'll put a link to the show notes there as well.
Always happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun, and I kind of over promoted this to Eric, so I'm going to apologize to Eric a little bit.
Well, no, I
wanted to get him hyped up on it. I was
loved it.
hoping that would kind of carry through. So
It's always good to have a different opinion, as I have proven with Heat and a few others.
Yeah, and we keep having you back for some reason. That's the eternal question: is why can't I reset and go back to the Heat episode and kick you off?
So, Nick, are you going to give Heat 2 a shot or what?
I'll watch Heat 2. I will. I certainly will. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's gonna cut. That's an anchor. That's an albatross around your neck, Nick. On this podcast is the Heat episode. Hey. We're gonna continue to bring that up.
I gotta be free, man. I gotta be free.
Give me all you got. Anyway, for Roland, for Nick, and for Eric, this has been Dean asking you to please be kind. Go ahead and rewind.